Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Before we get into today's video, I need you to know that what I'm about to share with you is completely real. And honestly, it's been keeping me up at night for the past 3 weeks. I've debated whether or not to even make this video, but I feel like I need to document this, and maybe, just maybe, someone out there can help me make sense of what I've discovered. So if you're new here, please hit that subscribe button because things are about to get really strange. About a month ago, I was helping my grandmother clean out her attic. She's getting older and wanted to downsize, move into a smaller place, and she asked me to help sort through decades of accumulated stuff. You know how it is with old houses, right? Boxers upon boxers of things that nobody's touched in years, covered in dust, filled with memories just waiting to be read. I honestly thought it would be a boring weekend of throwing out old newspapers and maybe finding some vintage clothes, but then I found something that changed everything. Tucked away in the corner, beneath a pile of mathetin blankets and some old photo albums, there was this small wooden box. It wasn't fancy or anything, just a plain wooden box with a simple latch, but something about it caught my attention. Maybe it was the way the wood had aged, or maybe it was just curiosity, but I opened it. Inside was a leather-bound diary. The leather was cracked and worn, the pages yellowed with age, and when I carefully opened it, I saw the date written on the first page in careful, flowing handwriting. 1899. My hands were literally shaking as I held this piece of history. A diary from over 120 years ago, right here in my hands. I thought maybe it belonged to some distant relative, maybe my great-great-grandmother or someone from that era in my family. But here's where things get weird. Really weird? As I started reading through the entries, I realized that this diary was talking about me. Not someone with a similar name, not some distant relative who happened to share characteristics with me. This diary was describing me, my life, things that are happening right now in 2025. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking this is some kind of prank, right? That maybe someone in my family is messing with me. Created this elaborate hoax with artificially aged paper and ink. Trust me, I thought the same thing. But I've had the diary examined by 2 different experts in historical documents, and they both confirmed that the paper, the ink, the binding, everything about this diary is authentic to the late 1800s. There's no way this is a modern forgery. Let me read you some of the entries, and you'll understand why I'm so freaked out. The first entry that caught my attention was dated March 15th, 1899. It says, and I quote, "I have seen her again in my visions, the girl from the future time. She has hair the color of an..." Then it describes my exact hair color, and eyes that carry a sadness she tries to hide behind laughter. She lives in a world of impossible things, where carriages move without horses and people carry small rectangular devices that connect them to all the knowledge of the world. She is searching for something, though she does not yet know what it is. When I first read that, I felt chills run down my spine. The description was too accurate. The mention of cars and smartphones, things that wouldn't exist for decades after this was written. But it gets even more specific. Another entry from April 2nd, 1899, describes my apartment. Not just any apartment, but my actual apartment, with details that are too precise to be coincidental. It mentions the crack in the ceiling above my bed that looks like a river, the way the afternoon sun creates a specific pattern on my wooden floor, even the plant I keep on my windowsill that's barely surviving because I forget to water it. How could someone in 1899 know these things? How could they describe my life with such accuracy when they lived over a century before I was even born? I've been going through this diary page by page, and there are entries that describe conversations I've had with friends, decisions I've made, even dreams I've had. There's an entry from May 23rd, 1899, that describes a dream I had just 2 weeks ago. The exact same dream, with all the same bizarre details that I could not even fully explain to my best friend because it was so weird and personal. The person who wrote this diary identifies themselves only as the Watcher. They never give a full name, never explain who they are or why they can see into my life. But throughout the diary, they seem genuinely concerned about me, almost protective. There are warnings scattered throughout the pages, warnings about choices I should make, people I should be careful around, opportunities I shouldn't miss. Here's one that really got to me. There's an entry from June 7th, 1899 that says, "She will face a great decision in her 26th year, a choice between safety and passion, between what is expected and what is true to her heart. I've seen both paths. One leads to comfort, but quiet desperation. The other leads to struggle, but eventual fulfillment. I cannot tell her which to choose, but I pray she finds the courage to listen to the whisper of her soul rather than the shouts of the world around her. I just turned 26 3 months ago, and I am facing exactly this kind of decision. I've been offered a promotion at my current job, something stable and well-paying, but it would mean giving up on a passion project I've been working on for years. The diary seems to know about this. It seems to know about everything, but it's not just about knowing things. There are entries where the watcher seems to be experiencing my emotions, feeling what I feel. There's a particularly haunting entry from August 19th, 18, where they write about feeling overwhelming sadness and loneliness, describing it as a gray fog that settles over everything. I went back through my own journal, and I realized that almost exactly 1 year ago, I went through one of the darkest periods of my life. I was dealing with a breakup and felt exactly that way, like a gray fog had settled over everything. The connection between us, between me and this mysterious watcher from the past, it feels real. It feels like somehow, across time, we're linked. But why? What's the purpose of this connection? Why would someone from 1899 be able to see into my life? And more importantly, woe wear it. I've been doing research, trying to figure out who might have lived in my grandmother's house back in the late 1800s. The property records show that the house was built in 1887, and it was owned by a family with the last name of Ashford. One managed to find some census records, and there was a woman living in the house in 1899 named Eleanor Ashford. She would have been 28 years old at the time. I found one photograph of her in the local historical society archives. It's a formal portrait, and she's sitting very straight, very proper. But there's something in her eyes, a depth, an intelligence, and maybe a hint of sadness. I stared at that photograph for a long time, wondering if this was the person who somehow saw across time into my life. According to what little information I could find, Eleanor Ashford never married. People said she would sometimes talk about visions and dreams, about seeing things that hadn't happened yet. Most people dismissed her as strange, perhaps a little touched in the head as they might have said back then. But what if she really could see the future? What if she really was seeing me? There are entries in the diary that suggest Eleanor, if she is indeed the watcher, struggled with her gift. She writes about how isolating it is to see things others cannot see, to know things that haven't happened yet, to feel connected to someone who exists in a time so far in the future that she can barely comprehend the world they live in. One entry from September 11th, 1899, breaks my heart. She writes, "I saw her crying today. The girl from tomorrow. She sat in a room filled with miraculous lights, and she cried because she felt alone. I wanted so desperately to reach out, to tell her that someone sees her, that someone across all these years understands her pain. But I am trapped in my time as surely as she is trapped in hers. All I can do is write these words and hope that somehow, someday, she will find them and know that she was never truly alone." When I read that entry, I cried, because I remember that night. I remember sitting in my apartment, feeling completely isolated, despite being able to connect with thousands of people online. I remember feeling like nobody really saw me, really understood what I was going through. And all along, someone did see me. Someone from over a century ago was watching, caring, wishing they could comfort me. But here's where it gets even stranger. As I've continued reading the diary, I've found entries that seem to be about events that haven't happened yet. There are descriptions of things that are dated in her time as late 1899 and early 1900, but they're describing moments from my future. My future that hasn't happened yet. There's an entry from October 3rd, 1899, that describes me standing in front of a large body of water, making a phone call that will change my life. I haven't done this yet. I don't know what this phone call is about, or when it will happen, but the entry is very specific about the feeling of the moment. The way the wind will blow my hair, the color of the sky, the sense of both fear and excitement I'll feel. This raises an impossible question. Is this diary not just a record of someone from the past observing my life, but also a guide to what's coming? I'll be honest, this is where I start to feel scared. Because if the diary is accurate about things that haven't happened yet, then I'm faced with a choice. Do I read ahead? Do I look at these future entries and try to learn what's coming in my life? Or is that a violation of the natural order of things? I've spent hours just staring at the unread portions of the diary, wondering if I should continue. Some nights I go and sleep because I am so tempted to flip through the pages and see what has written about my future. Other nights I can't sleep because I'm terrified of what I might find. What if there's something tragic in there? Would knowing about it help me prevent it? Or would it just mean living with the dread of waiting for it to happen? What would you do if you found a diary from the past that described your life in detail and also seemed to contain information about your future? Would you read it? Would you use it as a guide? I've been thinking a lot about fate and free will lately. If everything in this diary is predetermined, if Eleanor saw it all happening over a century ago, does that mean I don't really have choices? Or does the fact that I now have this knowledge change things? Maybe by reading these words, I've already changed my future. There's another aspect to this that I haven't mentioned yet. Ever since I was a kid, I've had these moments. Moments where I suddenly know things I shouldn't know, where I make decisions that don't make logical sense but turn out to be exactly right. I always dismiss these as intuition or coincidence. But what if they weren't? They weren't. What if Eleanor has been reaching out to me my whole life, and the diary is just the first time I've ever been able to see the evidence of that connection? I remember when I was 16, I suddenly decided not to get in a car with some friends. There was no logical reason. We had plans. Primero wanted to go, but something inside me screamed not to get in that car. I made up an excuse, and my friends left without me. 20 minutes later, they were in an accident. Everyone was okay, but it was serious. Was that Eleanor? Was that her influence reaching across time to protect me? Was any of that really me? Or was it all Eleanor, guiding me from her place in 18? The more I think about this, the more questions I have, and the fewer answers I can find. Some quantum physics theories suggest that time isn't as linear as we experience it. That past, present, and future might all exist simultaneously. Maybe Eleanor and I are connected through something that science hasn't fully explained yet. Maybe consciousness can reach across time in ways we don't understand. I've also been researching historical accounts of people who claim to have visions of the future. It turns out there are more of these stories than I realized. Most of them were dismissed as delusional. But what if some of them were real? What if time is more permeable than we think? Here's what I've decided to do. I'm going to continue reading the diary, but slowly. I'm going to take it one entry at a time, and I'm going to really think about what each one means. I'm not going to rush ahead to read about my future. Instead, I'm going to let Eleanor guide me at the pace she intended. After all, she dated these entries for a reason. Maybe the order matters. Maybe I'm supposed to discover things in a specific sequence. Thanks for listening. I'll be back with an update soon. Don't forget to subscribe.